Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while. It's been an absolutely crazy summer. I apologize for not getting a video up sooner than this. I'm a ex-band guy, roadie, sound guy, tech, that kind of thing, and I'm mostly retired, but earlier this summer, some friends of mine from the UK were doing a tour across the United States, and their normal tour driver was having some health issues and couldn't do the tour. And so they've asked me to do it. And so this summer went from 0 to, oh my God, I have only a few weeks before I have to leave for tour. I have to get everything ready. And then it was the tour, and then it was back from tour, and I have to get everything done before the snow flies, etc., etc. It just was crazy whirlwind. So we're back, and I've been working on a new video setup and trying hard to get a better camera viewing situation down. So this is sort of a test run video to see how this works. I'm using a GoPro 12 with the Media Mod, and so we'll see how the sound is. We'll see how the image looks. The image is too wide already. I don't like it, but the camera is now small enough, and I've got a monitor in front of me so I can see what I'm doing. So in any case, today we're looking at this Deuta Werke tachometer from a German Tonschreiber. This tachometer is over 80 years old. And what is a Tonschreiber? It literally translates to tone writer. It's a big German military reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to acquire one, and I have not done anything with it just yet because I want to do a video on it for you guys. Helge Fyske, Lima Alpha 6 Charlie November Alpha, I believe is his call name. He has an excellent video on his Tonschreiber, and these machines are absolutely incredible. Like I said, I'll do another video on them at a later date, but these machines were 9 speeds with variable speed and a pitch shifting head, so they could record Morse code at high speeds and then slow it down in the field later. And the more I look at this machine, the more I study it, the more amazing it is. And my machine, unfortunately, I'll show you a picture of it, had some damage. At some point it got hit in the lower front and broke the socket for the high-speed head, and somebody carefully removed the socket, and unfortunately I did not get the socket. But we've been working really hard to try and use 3D printing technology to manufacture a new socket, and we're getting really close. And but my tachometer was also damaged. As you can see in this photo, the glass was broken, and the dial looked like it got some water in it. The tachometer is pretty rusted inside there and was damaged. And trying to find parts for an 81-year-old high-tech German ex-top secret military machine is impossible. And but my Google foo is pretty strong, and searching the web out there, I happened to find a store in Germany that specifically deals with military antiques and whatnot. And I contacted them, told them that I was looking for some parts for my Tonschreiber, and I had seen that in the past they had sold some Tonschreiber related items, reels and cases and machines and whatnot. And they informed me that they update their website twice a month, on the 1st and on the 15th, and that to be watching the next auction, or the next time they update the website, is they had a machine that was coming up that had been tinkered with. And when it came time, I took a look at the machine, and all the parts I needed were gone off of it, as was the case with most of these German Tonschreibers. After the war, they were converted to a more conventional use. So the high-speed head was removed, and 9-speed capstan motor system, which was big and bulky and not very good, was removed in favor for a conventional capstan and things like that. But they also listed this tachometer. And to try and find one of these tachometers, I mean, it was a miracle that it even happened. And so their prices on this website are typically really high, but this was priced pretty reasonably, and it was listed as is non-tested. I couldn't click the buttons fast enough. I bought it immediately and then sat and waited for 11 days for it to show up from Germany. And I had no idea what kind of condition it was going to be in. Was it going to be smashed? Was it going to be broken? Was it going to work? And when I got it, it in fact did work. If I spun the shaft on the back, the needle would move. But it didn't sound very good, and when I tilted it, I could hear something rattle inside. And if I looked carefully through the hole here, I could see something inside. And so I set out to take this tachometer apart and see if I could fix it. I didn't film that part just because I wasn't sure how to get this apart, and if I was going to end up destroying this, valuable, artifact essentially, I didn't want it to be on camera. So I took it apart, and the hardest part is that around the surface here, and I don't have this put together all of the way yet, but there is this steel ring that holds the glass in place, and I could not figure out how to get this out. I was taking picks in here and trying to pry at it and everything, and couldn't get it out. In fact, I ended up chipping the glass on one spot here, trying to get this ring out of here. And then I tilted it, and right here on the edge there's a little hole, and when you press a small, like a paper clip in there, it pushes on the metal spring so you can remove it. This thing is so amazing. Like I said, the more I work on this machine, the more fascinated I am by just the well thought out piece of machinery that every little piece is on here. But getting this thing apart was not easy by any means. Once I got this ring out, I couldn't figure out how to get the glass out of here. I wasn't sure if it was glued in or what, but I could see that there was a gap around it, and there was no way to get underneath it to lift it up. I tried tape on it, and it was stuck in there pretty good. I finally took a piece of clear packaging from like a bubble wrap package and slid it down in there, and I could see that underneath here, I don't know if it was glued or if it was just stuck or what, but as I worked it around here, I could see that it was starting to come loose. And it wasn't until I got all the way around that I was finally able to lift this piece of glass out of here. And I don't know how well you can see it, but right here on the edge you can see where I chipped it. But I was able to get the glass out. And in fact, cruising Amazon, I was able to find a Japanese company that sold 56mm diameter glass, 1.5mm thick, exactly like the original one, and it fits and works perfect. So I have a spare, and I have an extra piece of glass if I can repair my own tachometer. So underneath here there is a rubber ring, and this is what the glass was stuck to. And surprisingly, after 81 years, this rubber is still quite flexible and soft. It's absolutely amazing. And the glass was just stuck to this rubber, and that's what was holding it in there. So I was able to get that out, and then I had to try and get this piece out of here, and I could see that there was, let me grab a pair of tweezers here, there was a little black ring here. There we go. Oh, almost got it caught underneath the needle there. That wouldn't have been good. There's a little black trim ring here that came out. And then I had to try and get this out of here. And I thought I was having to try and remove the dial plate first. And then I thought maybe the mechanism bolted in or something. And I could not figure out how to get it out of there. I couldn't figure out how they got it together. I thought I was going to have to bend this needle up and try and lift it out. And I kept trying to put a hook tool underneath there and pull up on it. And I could not get it out for nothing. And what I finally ended up doing out of desperation is I could see that there is a bridge right here. And so I was able to reach in here and carefully grab onto this bridge and wiggle it, and I could lift it out of there. And right now, there we go. I could lift this piece out, and I could see the underside. And what I found in here was that this brass collar, which I'll show you more detail what this does, was just hanging on in here, and that it had cracked on the bottom. And that's what was making the noise. So if we take a look down inside of here, you can see I've got a brass collar on here. This brass collar, and here's another one, holds this little steel piece on top of the magnet in here. And I'll show you a picture of what this looks like without the steel piece, without this collar on here. But after 81 years, this collar had cracked. And when I started looking around the edge, there was lots of cracks around the edges. There was no way I was going to be able to fix this. So I went and took a look at the tachometer, or what was left of the tachometer on my machine, and saw that it was in pretty rough shape. It was very rusted in here, but I could see that the needle still moved, so I thought maybe I could repair this one, and so I was able to get this out of here. And it was a bugger to get this out because of the rust and the corrosion in here. It did not want to come out, but thankfully I was able to actually get it out in one piece. And I could see that this had actually been hit on the front and had bent this mechanism in here. And thankfully the spring was still in good shape. I was able to get this pulled out. But I could see that the brass ring on mine looked in better shape. And so I had carefully pulled this ring out, but it was split all the way up the side and almost all the way across the top. I soldered this one back together again as carefully as I could to try and get some measurements and figure out a way to determine how to fix this, what to do. And I started calling around and sending emails to every metal stamping, metal spinning shop I could find in the area, and nobody wanted to deal with, making a couple of pieces. If I was a customer wanting to buy 10,000 of them, sure, they'd be willing to talk to me. But, I figured I'd maybe make, I don't know, whatever made reasonable sense. 6, 8, 10, a dozen of them. I mean, what would it cost? Whatever it cost, I would have been willing to pay it if I could have found somebody to make it. And this piece is very clearly stamped to my eyes. When you look at this, you can see that there is a metal edge right here that rolls up, and that this edge here rolls up this way. And knowing German efficiency, this was a big sheet of brass, and it's a 30 gauge brass, and I'm sure it was just stamped out all in one shot, quickly and efficiently. And so I actually talked to my machinist about if he had any ideas of somebody who could make one of these. And he thought he could mill one out of a solid block of aluminum. And I got to tell you, this guy is a friggin' artist. This on my left here was a solid block of aluminum, and he was able to machine it to exact tolerances. And it's just amazing. The first one that he made was a prototype, and he accidentally miscounted and saw that it was only 6 slots, not 8. And so what I've got in here is actually 6 slots at the moment, and I can't decide if I want to leave it this way or change it. I think the only purpose of this ring is to hold this piece of steel on top of the magnet. I think that's all it does. And as best I can tell, it was just a press fit. And so our tolerances right now have this in here pretty good. I don't know what the original tolerance was, because this is just too out of shape to be able to measure it accurately. Where the split is, it's sort of ovaled, and I just have no way of being able to know what the actual press fit tolerance was. So this seems to work pretty good, and it's got a pretty tight feel to it. I can put a hook underneath it, and I can pull it off if I need to, but it feels pretty good. But for, as this is a historical piece and I am a sucker for trying to make things as perfect as possible, I went ahead and had him make some with 8 slots so it matched exactly. And I had to make extras, so I've got one here that I'll send off to Helge, and one I'll send off to Stuart Blacklock from Vintage Recorders UK, and anybody else that has a Tonschreiber. You're probably going to need this, because I will bet you all of these machines will have the same problem. So I wanted to show how this thing came apart in case anybody else is trying to repair one of these tachometers. It's not an easy job, and it's fragile, and it's very nerve-wracking, and even trying to get this back in here, it fits in here so tightly that it did not want to come out. So, like, if I try and use this one here, this is from my other this is the one that was actually in my machine. It just barely fits in there. I mean, it is just so snug, it does not want to go in there. And so it's going to take a little finesse to get in there. I probably am going to have to sand this edge down a little bit to get it to fit. I imagine after 81 years, the metal has expanded or contracted or whatever. And so it'll be interesting to get this put back together again and have it work. Surprisingly, the bearings don't sound too bad. I've been trying to apply some Marvell Mystery Oil in here, hoping it will soak down into these bearings and wet them up a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that. They don't sound too bad, but I can also feel that this is not quite perfectly balanced, which is surprising. Now, in the machine, there is a flywheel that goes on here, and I have not looked at mine to see if they did any sort of balancing, but I can see that there are points in here, center points in here, center hole drills, so you could support this and try and balance it. But I don't see any keyways on here, like it would be, you know, important that they did that. It still spins pretty good, and if this were a machine I was intending to keep, I would probably tear it apart and put in new bearings and do all that. But my goal for this machine is to donate it to a museum, and as such, I don't want to refurbish it 100%. I want to just make it look, you know, complete. And so replacing the tachometer and making a socket for the high-speed head is about as far as I'm going to do with it at the moment. I am currently talking to the Pavic Museum. We have a wonderful broadcast museum here called the Pavic. They actually have a Tonschreiber there. Mine is in better shape than theirs, actually, despite the two broken pieces on it. The rest of the condition of it is in better shape, and I have a nearly full spares case for my machine. So my goal is to ultimately donate this machine to a museum someplace, and I'm working with the Pavic to figure out who to donate it to and how far to take a restoration on it. My question to them was, is the machine more valuable 100% original and non-functional, or to go inside and replace all of the, you know, 80-year-old electrolytic capacitors and whatnot and make the machine actually function, but it's not 100% accurate internally? Would that matter? You're never going to see what's inside of it, so it doesn't matter. So we're working through that issue right now, and I just wanted to show you how this comes apart. And I don't know if you can see right here. How close can I get? I guess you can sort of see. Right there's that little hole. Will this get blurry if I get close? Yeah, see, these GoPros are great, but they don't have any real autofocus. But there's a little pinhole right here. And when you push on that pinhole in there, it lifts this little steel ring up so you can get underneath it and then pull the steel ring out. So, beautiful design. Really interesting in the way this is built. It looks like a rare earth magnet in there. And when you look really carefully in here, I can see that this is a steel shaft with this brass collar that's screwed onto this shaft. And then there is a sort of knurled nut that's screwed onto the brass collar that holds the magnet on. I don't know why they did that, but I suppose they did that so that way they could put this piece of brass in here so magnetically they could decouple the magnet from the steel shaft, which maybe would have collected magnetic shavings or something. And like I said, I think the only reason for this brass ring here is to hold this piece of steel on in here. And when I took it apart, I wanted to make sure I could put it back together 100%. And when I took the one out of my Tonschreiber, I could see exactly how the magnetic poles were lined up with this piece. And it's interesting, I could also see here where the ring lined up on top of here. And that this has 6 facets to it. The magnet has 6 facets to it, but these rings have 8. I don't think that the slits in here make any difference. I think this is just applying a spring force to hold the steel piece in place on top of the magnet. The only thing that I see on both of these is that this top here has a very slight concave to it, and I don't know if that was just an artifact of the stamping process or if it was actually designed and intentional to put pressure down onto the steel piece. But on these, I can't quite do that. I could maybe try and put a little bit of pressure on here to try and bend these down, or I might attempt to put some sort of a, I'm not sure what, I don't want to do super glue, but maybe a silicone or some sort of Loctite retaining compound, maybe just a touch or two to hold this and prevent this from spinning. I don't really know what issue it would cause if these aren't lined up perfectly. I can't imagine any, because I think the only point is to create a spinning magnetic force that causes this aluminum bucket in here to turn. This aluminum bucket turns and moves the needle. So I don't know, I don't know enough about magnetic circuits to understand exactly, you know, what's important and what's not in a top pull piece of a magnetic circuit. If you are a magnetic expert and you understand how magnetic circuits work, how this works, I would love to talk to you. I have got questions. Oh, have I got questions? Anyway, I'm going to put this tachometer back together again, and then in a later video I will put this tachometer into the machine and show you that process and the challenges that go with it. But for now, I just wanted to show you a little bit of how this tachometer, can you read that there? Deuta Werke. My German, I don't know how to speak German, so I'm trying to pronounce it from Google. How do you pronounce this? And this is quite faded. I've seen some of these where this dial plate is much more white. Over the years it's faded, and unfortunately the dial plate on mine, you can see where the water level was, where water dripped in here, got in here, and you can see it on the inside bucket of my tachometer as well, how it's all rusted in there and whatnot. So I have hopes that I can still repair this tachometer and have a new bezel silk screened for it. We'll see how that goes. But I'm very thankful that I was able to get this one. I can put this one in the machine and complete the machine. And if I am able to repair this other one, then that's even better. But it's really interesting when you look at, I don't know how this is made, if this was just paint, but it's a very thick material on here. And I can't imagine it was a label or anything, but it's got a glossy texture to it here. It's just such a shame that it had been damaged. But we'll do the best we can to get this back together again and make it work. So